After the recent deaths of Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline reports receiving the most calls in its history. Calls to the hotline spiked by 25% following Spade's death and 65% after Bourdain's.
Now, their deaths are bringing to light the issues of suicide and depression. And here to discuss the topic is psychotherapist JohnTsilimparis. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think these last two really hit people hard. I think the question and the comment a lot of people said afterwards is, why couldn't these two people be happy? They had such great lives, such productive lives, and so many people enjoyed their work. How does it happen to someone who seemingly has such a nice life?
Well, remember, depression doesn't discriminate, whether you're young, old, middle-aged, whether you're rich and famous, too. So here's an interesting statistic. Since 1999, the suicide rates have gone up 28%. And in the year 2016, 45,000 people committed suicide. I mean, that's a staggering number. Wow. And what's interesting even further about that is that 90% of those people suffered from either depression or another psychiatric condition or substance abuse. So we know that Anthony Bourdain had a history of heroin use a long time ago. And then Kate Spade also had a long history with depression and anxiety.
So let's talk about depression. And people sometimes don't know they're depressed. They just kind of, so what symptoms do you look for? How do you know if you're depressed or just going through a bad time?
Right. Everyone sees people depressed as being down in the dumps, not being able to get out of your bed and feeling hopeless all the time, feeling guilty. But sometimes depression can come out in extreme irritability. It can come out on poor impulse control, being angry a lot, being impatient a lot. So those are the types of things you want to look for. Also, changes in lifestyle. If you see drastic changes in people's friends, as well as with teenagers, just big differences in their lives.
A large chunk of that in the past were adolescent males. You see the boys not, going through those emotional changes. But girls, the numbers on female suicide are starting to catch up with the boys. Any idea what that's from? Could that be a result of social media and the pressures?
I think it's the same reason why we've gone up to 28% recently because, well, there's many reasons. One is we're not a society that embraces pain and suffering. We're more of a society that's attached to feeling good all the time and always looking happy. Right. We're averse to pain. And so also we still don't have adequate accessibility to depression and suicide prevention programs. Also, suicide and depression don't get as much exposure as other illnesses do.
Why the stigma with mental illness?
You know, it's funny. It's not funny. It's still sad. It's still seen as weakness, some kind of moral failing. You know, if you talk to somebody and you say to them, you know what, I suffer from diabetes or asthma, people will say to you, oh, I'm so sorry. What can I do to help? Or it must be awful. But if you tell somebody you're depressed, most of the time people will say, why are you depressed? What do you have to be depressed about?
Right.
So it's just ingrained in our psyche.
They're wrapping us, but real quick, if someone does tell you they're depressed, what do you recommend one should do?
I would suggest to seek out help, reach out, talk to people, get connected.
Just as simple as talking.
Read about it, learn about it, go see a therapist.
Oh, hopefully, right? We can end this stigma of mental illness and get some help. Yeah, John, thank you so much. Appreciate that. And you can learn more about John and check out his website, JohnTsilimparis.com. Also a wonderful writer. I loved your memoir. So a big fan of yours. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks so much.